Since the dawn of time, the way we'd price Vancouver and its suburbs is that everything would be priced in contrast to downtown Vancouver, with the exception of luxury areas like the British properties. Downtown Vancouver was the most expensive, and then the further east you went, the more affordable things became. But things are about to change. And I do believe that Vancouver will continue to be the most expensive, but I believe the gap between Vancouver and its cheaper neighbors will continue to close for reasons that I'm about to cover in this video. And the last reason is something super interesting that I'm just now starting to hear people talk about. So number one, the price of condos in Vancouver really hasn't changed since March 2018. The prices are about $20,000 higher. And I think the reason why that is price to income ratio. Something that's been talked about a lot is that the price you pay for real estate is drastically higher than the incomes in our local market. The price to income ratio in Vancouver is one of the highest in the world. And this isn't as effective when you're talking about townhomes or detached properties. And the reason being is that people who are buying townhomes and detached homes are using a lot of equity. They're getting gifted down payments, they're selling other properties, they're selling, other investments to then put larger down payments down to buy those properties. But when you talk about the condo market, a lot of that market are people entering the housing market. They are first-time buyers. And price-to-income ratios don't really support purchase prices higher than $750,000. At least that's why I think the growth has been stagnant in specifically the condo market in Vancouver. And the result of this is that you've had more and more people opt out of living in Vancouver and moving to the Fraser Valley, moving to Alberta, moving to Atlantic Canada, moving to Southern Ontario. And I don't really foresee this changing, at least not in the short term. Secondly, in addition to the first one, it is just becoming less necessary to live in a large metropolitan city. The way these cities initially grew is that people had to live in them for work because that's where all of the jobs were. However, now the economy is changing. It is less necessary to live in a metropolitan city to have a high-paying job. There are tons of high-paying white-collar jobs that allow you to work from home. And then you have the digital economy, which is employing more and more people every year. You have freelancers, people that make websites, edit videos, do graphic design. You have creators like myself making money on YouTube or selling coaching programs or affiliate marketers or selling products online. You have all of these jobs. Like, you now have creators that employ freelancers in the digital economy. And these are all jobs that can be done without actually living in a metropolitan city. You could live out in the middle of nowhere and make hundreds of thousands of dollars doing these types of jobs. And again, that space is growing bigger and bigger and bigger every year. On top of that, many years ago, if you wanted amazing amenities, trendy cafes, trendy restaurants, pubs, bars, and all these things, you had to live in a metropolitan city. And if you lived, in a smaller suburban area, you might have like Tim Hortons and a local bar. But now, at least in my market of the Fraser Valley, you go out to Langley, there is a lot of the same amenities you see in downtown Vancouver exist in Langley. Luxury high-end restaurants, trendy cafes, even nightlife exists. And again, the reason why I think Vancouver will continue to be the most expensive is, again, its geographical location on the water with mountains and everything. Things that, say, a Langley wouldn't have. But again, are people going to be willing to pay the extra $100,000, $150,000 for those kinds of amenities when they pretty much have 90% of it in the smaller suburban areas? And I mean, if you go out to almost any suburban city outside of Vancouver, you will get amenities similar to the amenities in downtown Vancouver, aside from maybe like clubbing. And there won't be as many of them, but they're there. And then lastly, something that I've heard pop up now is we don't need more density. We need more cities. Vancouver has we have Calgary and we have Montreal, but realistically, there's two cities. There's Vancouver, there's Toronto. And the problem with Vancouver and Toronto is we need more homes, we need more density. You can't build affordable density anymore. It only makes sense to build luxury towers for the most part because the land has gotten so expensive. And the problem with that type of product is, again, the price to income ratios don't support a $1 million condo or a $1.1 million condo. So what I've heard been touted now is hey, instead of just focusing so much on density in Vancouver and Toronto, why don't we just make the other smaller cities that we have more livable for the masses? Why don't we just bring more high-paying jobs there? Why don't we just bring more amenities there? And I think this is probably going to happen because the numbers don't make sense anymore to build new first-time buyer product in, say, a Vancouver or Toronto. If somebody's entering the housing market, they're likely, and they don't have help from parents or grandparents or anything like that, they're likely going to be buying in the suburban cities, meaning more growth for these cities because people can afford to fund new development in these cities. Now, I'm not a city planner, so I'm not going to talk about the logistics of how this makes sense. But I think you start adding everything up, and I think the upside for, say, a condo in Vancouver isn't the same as a condo in a smaller suburban city. I feel like there's more upside, there's more appreciation to be had. There's more room for that city to turn over and become something great. You know, you think about Vancouver, what realistically has changed in Vancouver in the last 20 years, right? It's the same city that it was 20 years ago. Some people would argue that it's probably even gotten worse, but there hasn't been any monumental changes to the actual infrastructure of the city itself. There's been new developments, there's been luxury high rises, things have changed, but it's not a complete night and day difference like a Langley that was a small little country town when I was in high school and it was grass everywhere to now it's super dense with tons of infrastructure and all these brand new amenities. So I think the end result here is you might have like an $800,000 condo price in Vancouver, and then you might have like a Surrey trading at 700,000. And you might have an Abbotsford trading at like a 625 or a 650 or something like that. And I think you're gonna see the gap between how expensive Vancouver is and how affordable everywhere else is start to close over time. But that's my thesis, and maybe I'm wrong. If you enjoyed this, like and subscribe. If you wanna chat with me about buying or selling in the Fraser Valley, I got a link in my description. You can book a call to chat with me. I'm that Agent Kelly, and I'll make moves to move you. Peace.